Yo, that Escanor. I feel like I was just trolled by Nakaba-sensei. Like, does anyone else feel like they just got trolled? Because the final page of this side story, this backstory 12 years ago about Escanor and when, there was a mission 12 years ago taking down vampires, you see how weak he looks. Like, when I envision Escanor, when I look at his wanted poster and I envision Escanor, I think of a badass old dude that just rips people's heads off. That's exactly what I envision in my mind when I think of Escanor. But the reveal of Escanor, okay, I saw this spoiler about a couple weeks back, and I didn't know it was going to be the final page of this side story. And that kind of makes me mad. It really does, because that cliffhanger really sucks. Like, it really, really, really sucks, because we have to wait for the next part. Supposedly, from what I found out, is that this side story is going to be split up into 3 different parts. So, yeah, I don't know when the next part is going to be coming out. I'm willing to bet it's going to be bundled with the DVD and BD of Taizai. For instance, the BD and DVD 1, Volume 1 of Taizai, the anime, came out late last month, and it released this special chapter along with it. So if I'm going to be a betting man, I want to say that the next part of this side story will come out when the next part of the anime comes out in Japan. So, we're gonna have to wait probably maybe a month or 2, so that really sucks. It really does, because I want to know more. I really do. Because this chapter leaves us on a cliffhanger that has me thinking about a lot of different things. A lot of theory crafting. So, this is going to be me theory crafting. Let's dive into this. So, I feel like I was trolled. I want to get back into that. I feel like I was trolled because the hype and the build-up of Escanor has been immense. It has. And we've all had our own little individual theories of Escanor. Everybody pretty much has. And we've all kind of envisioned him looking like an old man. But if, the past tells us anything, usually when it comes to the wanted posters of Taizai, the wanted posters of the Sins usually are kind of messed up in some form or fashion. They're somewhat altered. And that means we should have probably expected something off with Escanor's wanted poster. But there is some things that really stand out when it comes to this chapter when it goes along the lines of Escanor. Meliodas talks and hints about somewhat in the daytime. Like, in the chapter, he's like, what time of day is it, Merlin? Like, he asks about, like, what time of day is it right now? And you have it to where they tell Meliodas in this chapter, like, oh, it's about to be midnight, so we're in the middle of the night. And that, honestly, if you were asking that type of question, that would be very, very bad, because they're about to fight up against vampires, and they don't want it to be nighttime. Like, you straight up don't want nighttime at all when you're going to be fighting vampires, but it doesn't really matter because the entire city's been warped and distorted into, like, perma-night. But still the point is, they were happy that it was nighttime regardless, which is really odd. And Escanor, supposedly from what I understood from the chapter's translations, is that he's weird in the daytime. So, Escanor's not a vampire. You know what would be interesting? What if Escanor is the opposite of a vampire? What if he is a lichen? Or, a werewolf, for simpler terms, for if you don't know what lichen is. What if he is? That would be an odd twist, but still, it doesn't make a lot of sense, because, nighttime is when werewolves and lichens, transform. They transform because of the moon, and daytime, yeah, because, I don't know. Daytime shouldn't really affect a werewolf or a lichen. I mean, it should keep them in a regular base human mode. So, I'm willing to bet there's something really off with Escanor. Like, he might have a curse or something like that, because clearly he's very strong. You can assume that from the ending of this chapter, because Meliodas, he is dragging this giant-ass hammer, sacred treasure hammer, at the end of the chapter, and Meliodas, states, this is quite heavy. Like, oh, why, your sacred treasure is always so heavy. And Meliodas is dragging it. Why? So it makes me assume in this mode that Escanor is in is that he can't carry it. Like, he's weak at the moment. But I'm guessing at a certain time frame or certain, time of day, he can use it because he probably gets physical strength. I'm assuming that's what it is, because if Meliodas complains about, like, heaviness of something, like a weapon, yo, it just goes to show you how physically strong Escanor probably is if he can wield that sacred treasure efficiently. So the chapter gives us so many questions and makes us wonder, like, okay, so how strong is Escanor? Because if they were all worried, like, if all the other sins, you saw King, he was kind of worried in this chapter. He's like, oh no, we're even going to get the help of him? And they were acting like that. I'm like, what the hell? So what's wrong with Escanor? So they're hinting that something is wrong with Escanor, clearly, and it goes with the time of day. And obviously from the weapon, Sacred Treasure, it's very heavy, so he could possibly wield this like it's nothing, probably even with one hand. And so, you're telling me that Escanor, he's a heavy hitter. Like, he might be like a heavy hitter like Diane when it comes to the sins. And if so, whoa. But then, on top of that, like, he's weak too. Like, how strong is he in this mode? Like, with his regular weak-looking self. Because why would he ask Meliodas to drag it to begin with, regardless? So, moving off that, just pushing that aside, okay? The chapter also reveals a lot of other things that really stood out. And this is the interesting part that makes me want to dive into Furycraft. Right at the beginning of this chapter, like right at the beginning, like the first page, the cover, look at Meliodas' armor. Look closely at his armor, and you will see something right here on the neck region. You will see the goddess symbol on his neck region. Now, let's go back to the last chapter of Taizai. The one that showed, like, an adult version of Meliodas that was obviously Estarossa. It's Estarossa. And Chibi made a good Fury on Estarossa, which I want to mention in my next review of Taizai, but I will mention that, when the chapter comes out. But the thing is, okay, the symbol was very similar to Estarossa. So, once again, Nakaba-sensei, linking that, the similarities between Estarossa and, Meliodas. So, it's really weird. And let's think about this, too. This chapter came out before the last chapter. Like, the last chapter came out right after the side story came out. So, in all honesty, this chapter should be called, like, I guess, 11? Like, 111.1. That's what I think this chapter should be called. But regardless of the title of the names, it's very weird how the similarities are there. It's being shown. Nakaba-sensei is making it very obvious with the symbol on Meliodas' armor with Estarossa. So, moving into the next part. Zoroastrius. I didn't really think I would see Zoroastrius in this side story. Like, I did not expect that at all. I really didn't. And from what we understand from visibility from different translations and fan translations, stuff like that, looking online, Zoroastrius' ability is called Purge. And from what you can understand from the glimpse of his power, is that it can purge all evil inside of a person, because he touches these holy knights that have been infected by vampirism. I think that's how you say the name. These holy knights have been infected by like a vampire curse. He touches them and it instantly purifies them. It just purifies them like that, and they're back to normal. They're unconscious, but they're back to normal. And so I think I know what's going on here. If anyone doesn't understand what this means, I'm about to let you know. I find it very weird how Zoroastrius' power can counteract Fraudron's power. If you don't know who Fraudron is, I'm about to let you know again. You should remember his name. Fraudron is the one that took over Dreyfus' body, his mind, and then Dreyfus, turned these sins into rebels, and he killed his own brother, so forth, so on, revived the demon clan, up to speed right there. So, it's very weird how Fraudron could possibly have been destroyed. His entire plans could have been destroyed thanks to Zoroastrius, because Zoroastrius can purify any evil, from what I can understand. So, if you was to touch Dreyfus, Fraudron would be fucked. So, it just goes to show you why Fraudron probably attacked Zoroastrius out of all the other Holy Knights, and why he took him down was because he was a massive threat to his greater schemes. Not just because he was the great Holy Knight, the great Holy Knight, but because his powers could really conflict with the revival of the Demon Clan. So, it shows you why Fraudron took and tried to destroy him. But also in the chapter, it makes me wonder a couple things too. We really don't have a key time frame when Fraudron really, you know, infected Dreyfus. Like, we don't know what time he really affected Dreyfus at all, and I wonder when Dreyfus actually came in contact with Fraudron and got infected. I really want to know that. Hopefully one day we find out the backstory behind that, because in this, it was really odd getting to see the actual real Dreyfus along with, you know, Seratrus and Hindi, getting to see the good Hindi, getting to see the good, you know, Dreyfus and all that. It was really odd and out of place after seeing these characters being like the villains of the last arc, like the main central villains, and seeing how now they're kind of good guys in this flashback. It throws you off, throws you for a loop. So that's the sum of the chapter. And then you go into the vampire part with the warp territory and stuff like that, which really stood out. That was really, really weird. The entirety of Edinburgh Castle, yes, I know I'm saying it wrong, don't butcher me. The Edinburgh Castle was warped. It was destroyed and warped, and you saw like the pillars of the castle just disfigured. And it was perma-night. And this is from the actual Vampire King that did this. And so, are you telling me that the space being distorted like it is, like, you know, how the entire castle was distorted, is it because of that is why the Ten Commandments in the last chapter of Taizai was looking at the castle like it was deformed and exploded from the inside? I'm guessing that's what caused it, this fight that's about to happen, or probably because it was warped for whatever the type of power that the Vampire King has. Either way, the Vampire King seems very strong, just straight up very strong, because his power is multiplied by twofold because of nighttime. All vampires are. It's perma-night, and we do know all the, you know, sins are stronger than the standard Holy Knights, so they really don't have an issue taking out the Holy Knights of the, you know, Edinburgh Castle. Still, I wonder how strong these vampires are going to be. I really am. I'm looking forward to it. I really am. So how do y'all feel about this, you know, first peek at Escanor? How do you feel about all this little shocking reveals about how Seratrus could have easily have destroyed the plans of Fraudron? You know, just let me know. I love y'all so much. You have a wonderful day or not, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.